It's time now for Teen Christian Ministries Live with your hosts, Larry Roy and Leslie Lamb. Chat lines are open at tcmlive.com by clicking on the Live Join Now button. TCM Live addresses issues that teens face daily, providing a safe place to talk it out and find answers to their questions. Larry and Leslie are in the studio. Let's join them now for TCM Live.
Welcome to TCM Live. We are here tonight with Michael Willis. He's coming to share his testimony with us. We're so glad you joined us. Those of you who are chatting, we thank you for chatting with us. We hope you continue to chat. As always, if you have some special prayer requests, you can click on the live prayer button and we will be happy to pray with those things for you. Also, those of you who were just having a good time and needed to kick back and relax and play around with Tim Sanderson and Larry, we're glad to be there for that too. We just want you guys to know that you're not alone. So before we get into this interview and we find out what God's doing in Michael's life and what God has done, we're going to open up in prayer. Daddy God, we just love you and we praise you and we thank you for this opportunity to share your testimony, your story through Michael over the air, God. And we just pray that those who are listening might be able to identify with his story and might be encouraged and might be offered hope and help in the time that they need it most, God. We know that you see us, we know that you love us, and we know that you never lose sight of who we are and what you have us doing, God. We thank you for your love and for your grace and your mercy that's given to us through Jesus Christ. We ask it in his name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so Michael Willis.
Yes.
Michael Willis is part of our TCM core group. Those of you who do not know, there's a group of fine men and women that stand alongside Larry and I. We may be the ones on the webcast. And you've seen a couple of them. You've seen Sean and you've seen Chris Tromador. But Michael is the guy who pretty much runs our Facebook page. Yeah. So we are grateful for Michael for stepping in and doing that for us. And
I enjoyed it. So.
Michael met us at...
So I met you when you were with the Cross.
Okay, he met me when I was at the radio station.
And then I met you and Larry when I was actually working at the Corner Coffee House.
That's right. We met Michael at the Corner Coffee House, and he served us up some amazing lattes. And before you know
Specialty.
Exactly. We had a little coffee romance going on. And that's where we would meet to have our meetings. And Michael, of course.
I would eavesdrop,
Yeah, anybody who spends 10 minutes with Larry and I is going to hear.
You don't have to eavesdrop because Larry's a little loud. So.
Larry is a little loud, yeah. So, anybody who spends about 10 minutes with us is going to hear about TCM.
You spend 10 minutes and you fall in love with them, and then you're stuck with them. So.
That's exactly right. You can't get away.
Exactly.
So we met you at the Corner Coffee House, and what was it that stood out to you about TCM?
Well, my whole life, well, it's not that long, but my whole life is something that I've always wanted to do was reach out and help the youth that, teenagers or youth that no one else wants to help, the ones that people think are too far gone or something like that. And I've been looking for that outlet, and then I met y'all and heard y'all talking, and as time went on, listened, and then y'all talked to me, and it's taken a year now or more to get me on here.
Yeah.
But it's a passion
almost
of
2
mine.
years, actually.
Yeah, actually, almost 2 years. But it's a passion of mine to help everyone, but especially those whose hearts cry out the loudest and nobody listens.
Oh yeah.
And then just things fell together to here we are today. So yeah.
So last week we had Logan on, and you and Logan Satterfield are friends. Grew up together.
Well, not really. Actually, we didn't grow up together.
Oh.
But we got really close because I actually don't know. I guess we're a lot alike. We just got really close over time whenever I moved here, and we actually met at the coffee house as well, and just became friends over time. So, but
you share kind of similar testimonies.
I get bad decisions. So but now we're much better places in our lives. So yeah, and we. I think the best way we went through a lot of the same struggles and so forth, and to get where we are today. And then it's good because we support each other. And,
yeah.
So.
What would you say is kind of the biggest struggle that you feel like you've had to overcome through Christ?
I know for the longest for me, I'm a preacher's kid, and one thing that always got me in life was I was held to a higher standard because I was a preacher's kid, and everybody. You would think you hear the old adage that preachers' kids are the worst, which is very true, but
not always.
No, I'm playing, but I was always held to this standard of when we would go to a new church or something, they would think I knew every Bible verse and that I did everything right and that I could save their child or something like that.
Right.
And as a teenager, especially as a teenager, that made me, instead of want to achieve that, it made me want to run as far away as I could from God to prove people that I wasn't this little goody-goody.
Yeah.
And it, over time, just Satan took that loophole and just ran with it, and I let him. And
yeah.
I put myself through all kind of stuff that I'm not proud of. And but that has been my biggest fight is, I guess you could say, not the church, but I fought the what you would call the church forever because I didn't want to be a part of all that. I wanted to, I guess, be my own person and not be what people wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And I was always, and the sad part is I'm 28 today, and up until just recently, well, not today, not my birthday, but up until just
happy birthday,
I know,
Michael.
right? Up until just recently, in the past year and a half or so, I finally got to a point in my life where I realized that God is the one that I need to live up to, not other people's. Because I was always looking to, well, this person thinks this or this thinks that, and I never lived up to other Christians or other people's standpoints, and that's where I put myself down until finally I realized in the end all that matters is what me and God and what I do for him and what's right with him.
That's right.
And that's what I fought forever because I was always trying to live up to everybody else.
And I don't think you're the only one who's fought that, because I think that we have such a culture and society of judgment, you know, where we're always looking and picking out the flaws of other people, that we can kind of make it seem like God does the same thing. Like we compare ourselves to one another, so we think that God is comparing us to one another, when the truth of the matter is He's not.
No, he loves us all.
He knows how he created Michael Willis to be, and that's the only standard that he's looking at.
Yes.
He's not looking at Michael compared to Larry, compared to Leslie, compared to whoever.
Yeah.
He's looking at Michael Willis. And so I think that we lose sight of that a lot, because I'm with you. I feel like a lot of times in that church that you wanted to separate yourself from, which you know has to grieve the heart of God.
Yeah.
But it's because I think we've gotten so far away from just loving one another and being in community with one another and building one another up, which was the biggest thing that we're supposed to do as a church. And we've become more accustomed to finger pointing and judgment, and you're not measuring up and you're not living up to this standard, and pointing out the blaring sins when there are so many that are dealing with sin and we just have it kind of covered up.
And it's of not. I'm a grown man, and it's of no fault of anybody else's. But for the longest time, after years of that, I then tried to play the victim. I'm like, well, everybody in the church hates me, and that kind of stuff, and it made me even go further into sin.
Right.
But that was the one thing, and one of my biggest drives today with people is, we're not here to judge. We're not here to tell people how to live their lives. God wants to use us as a vessel for His mercy and His grace. So instead of calling people out and pointing out everybody else's sins, basically, because that's not our job. I know if I was here to judge, this world would be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But we're not here to judge. So my mission now is to be that vessel of God's mercy. I mean, I don't care if you're the richest person on the planet or the poorest or a drug user or whatever, all that. I'm going to love you just like I want to be loved.
Right.
And that's how I always perceive, I guess, say my daddy God is, no matter what I do, he's still going to love me. Even whenever because I'm the hardest headed person I've ever met. And I pushed, I kicked, I fought, I screamed, I did everything I could to get away from him for so long and he still accepts me no matter what. And I pushed him away all that time, and he still, 28 years later, he still come home. Yeah. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that person where no matter what anybody does, I just want to say, hey, come on.
And I think that's sometimes the hardest thing for us to understand, because that is perfect love. That's unconditional love. And we don't see that. We don't experience that. Even as parents, I'm a parent, you're a parent. We love our kids unconditionally, but still we get frustrated with them.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. But regardless of the bad decisions that they make, we still want them to be our children.
Exactly.
We still want to love them through it. We still want to see the difference made in their life. But we're good parents.
Yeah.
We may be talking to some people out there who don't have good parents, don't have parents.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in order for them to, if they've had an abusive father or an abusive stepfather or whatever, for them to think, wait, you mean this guy you're calling Daddy God is not going to beat me because I'm screwed up. He's not going to,
Exactly.
And it's really hard for us to fathom, but it is the truth. And we even have some scripture verses that kind of back up what we're saying. Yeah. One that we found was in James 4:12. Can you read that, Michael?
God alone, who gave the law, is the judge. He alone has the power to save or to destroy. So what right do you have to judge your neighbor?
Yeah. See, that's very powerful. And that was James talking to the baby church. Jesus had left, and the disciples were taken over, and they were beginning to start the church. And that was the statement that he was making to the believers of that time. Don't judge your neighbors. Because, listen, guys, it's been a problem since the beginning of time. Matter of fact, it was a problem with Jesus. The religious people wanted to judge Jesus for what they felt he was doing wrong.
Yes.
And it's the same way now. We want to judge other people for the wrong that they're doing without taking consideration that we too are not perfect.
Exactly.
And we would never say that. We would never say, well, I'm perfect.
No.
I could totally judge that person because I'm perfect. We would never say that.
I wouldn't even want that responsibility.
No, good Lord, no.
No, it's just, especially if you do that, and one thing I said, just look in the mirror. If you judge somebody else or something, look in the mirror and see, am I doing the same thing, something worse, or judging has always been an issue with me, because that was something I felt victim of, and we all have been. Everybody does it. I've done it too. I'm not nobody's perfect, but I know that's one thing with me is just to watch that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all tempted to do it. I think the devil sits on all of our shoulders and wants us to feel better about our, you'll feel better about yourself if you point out their sin. Yeah. It definitely is a temptation. But you're right. When we get tempted to do that, we need to remember, it's not our place to judge. And another verse that we found, the one that I love, is Matthew 7:1-2. And it says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. This is Jesus speaking. For you will be treated as you treat others. That's scary. The standard you use in judging is the same standard with which you will be judged. Wow.
That's really powerful.
That is very powerful. Yeah. So when you take a finger and you point at others and you condemn them for their lifestyle, for their struggle, for their addictions, whatever it may be, you need to remember that you too are going to be judged by that same standard of judgment. So if you offer grace, like you said, if you're that vessel of mercy, then you will be received with grace and mercy as well.
Exactly. And when you do that, like we were saying earlier, maybe we're talking to somebody that has been abused or doesn't have that mercy in their life. You may not even know the person, but if you present that mercy and that grace, for all you know, you could have just change that person's life, or just a smile, or just a thought, or the same thing with me. At the time when I met Leslie and Larry at the coffee house, I was at a point where I'd just come out of one of the lowest parts of my life, and I was at a point in life where I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do, and I didn't know what was coming tomorrow. And them just showing that interest in me, and that's the kind of love I'm talking about, is just to show that mercy, show that grace, and be like, hey, I see something in you. And when you do that, like Leslie and Larry never even knew until way later the impact they had on me as a person,
right,
and how it changed me. And you never know, you may not even know you did it, but you can know in your heart you were nice, and you, for all you know, you may have just saved that person from doing something really stupid. You never know what you've done there. And that's, I guess, the other thing on the saying, do not judge on the same thing. You were never too far gone for God. Like, you can do all kind of things. I did drugs, I did the pornography, I did the alcohol, all that. I did it all, and I did it really, really hardcore for a long time, and all those things, running from God, bad lifestyle, all that. And I sit here today, and I'm happier than I've ever been. And I know people may judge me, but God still loves me, and God still wants me to be what He called me to be. So you've never done too much.
Yeah.
God's always going to be there.
As long as you're running to God,
Mm-hmm.
He's always going to be there. The minute that you turn your back on God, God does not turn His back on you. He's still faced fully towards you, waiting for you to turn back to Him. But you're the one that makes the decision to turn your back on God. Mm-hmm. He's always going to be waiting for you to turn around.
Exactly. I know for me, that's one thing. I know everybody knows the whole footprints adage, where the footprints in the sand.
Yeah.
But that, I look back on my life and I see where I was running whenever I was in the drugs, when I was on the streets doing things I shouldn't have been, or things like that. I look and I see the footprints. They're not mine. I didn't carry myself through that. I put myself in that situation, but I didn't carry myself through that. I didn't even know who I was or where I was. And God was carrying me. When I thought I had pushed Him away, and when I thought I had gotten rid of Him, He was carrying me the whole time. And He got me to where I am now, and it just amazes me. It blows my mind even today. Just like, wow, God, even though I tried my best to get rid of Him because of just human stupidity, He still carried me.
I love that cartoon that came out recently about the footprints in the sand. Did you see that one?
I don't know if I did.
Where it says, basically Jesus is saying, where you see the one set of footprints, that's where I carried you, and that long drag, that's where I dragged your butt.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
very true.
It's very true.
It is very,
Jesus
very true.
had to drag my butt a time or two.
Yes, He did. Yes, He did.
But it's so true. He does not give up on us. No. We can give up on Him, but He never gives up on us.
Amen.
And as long as we are willing to turn around and to put it back in His hands, He will take it every single time.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yes.
And I love that you're sharing your testimony, because recently I was talking to a girl who was chatting with us with TCM, and she was recognizing in herself that she was starting to kind of have that religious mindset, that self-righteousness.
It's very easy to do.
It's very easy
to
do.
So, yeah.
It is very scary. But, there comes a point where, as you become closer and closer to God, and you begin to see more of His nature and more of His love and more of His grace and more of His mercy, you begin to exhibit those things in your own life.
Exactly.
And, not too long ago, we had a guy on here named Tony Rios, and he shared an amazing testimony about his struggle with homosexuality. And we don't want to talk about that in the church.
No, they try to sweep it under the rug.
Exactly. We sweep that under the rug. That's an issue that nobody needs to talk about. But it was something that was really, it was a battle for him. And, he decided that he was going to express that. This is a struggle for me. I am struggling with homosexuality. And it amazed me and broke my heart at the number of people that just immediately started
Abandoned.
rumors about him.
Yeah.
Immediately. You know, it wasn't just that he was struggling. Suddenly he was in a full-out homosexual relationship, gonna run off to wherever, LA, and get married. I mean,
Wow.
it's crazy how we just take these things and we just manipulate them and make these things into something that devours someone instead of
Exactly.
encourages
And
them.
when you bear that false witness on somebody, then that's just another thing that's going to bring them down.
Exactly.
And that's especially with some, and that's the other thing with that. It's always bothered me because if somebody, it took a lot for him, not just homosexuality, all kind of things, like drug use, pornography, all that kind of stuff. It takes a lot to admit you have that problem. And then when you go to the one place that you feel you should be able to and get that help, and then you're abandoned or shunned or rumors started, all that does is make you want to run harder and
Exactly.
and not in the right direction. So that is amazing that he's come to where he is today as well, because that's a scary situation when you're struggling with something like that and it feels like nobody wants to help.
Right. Well, and that, and that's a lot of where TCM, and you know this, and this was part of what stoked your heart about it, is we want these kids to know, no matter what you're facing, no matter what issue you're dealing with, whether it's homosexuality, sexual identity crisis, pornography, sexting, whatever it may be, we're here to help you, because we know that you're not the only one out there that's struggling with that issue. And if we can help you to see that and encourage you through it by pointing to someone who struggled with it, addiction, struggled with drinking, struggled with drugs, struggled with pornography, and you can say that, oh, look, he's sitting here and he's an overcomer through Christ, then that gives you the strength and the capacity to stand up and say, you know what? This stinks, and I am really going through it, and I don't know what's going to happen from here. But if you say I can give it to God, and God will take care of it, then I'm going to give it to God and let Him take care of it. And then that becomes a responsibility of us as Christians to go back and say, okay, you know what? He finally admitted that he's struggling with such and such. So my job is not to make him feel like a slug. My job is to encourage him and build him up in Christ, because regardless of what he's struggling with, there is a hope.
Yeah, and I guess that's another point to touch on also is, it's really hard to admit you have that problem. Some of you may know that. You may be struggling with something and you have it, but you don't want others to know because you're worried you'll be judged, or you're worried you'll be shunned, or so forth. And I guess that's the other thing. When you see people like us in front of this camera, or your pastor at your church, or a pastor on TV or whatever, a lot of times a general misconception is those people are perfect.
Right.
Well,
no.
I'm here to tell you now, we're not. We're not. And a lot of us have been there, done that. Some stories are worse than ever. It's not a competition. Trust me, I don't want anybody to go through what any of us have been through. But that's one thing to know, is if you are struggling with that, or you are fighting with it, know that those of us that are here to help you, a lot of us, like she just said, have been through it. And we know what you're going through, and we know how hard it is to let go of that. Like I said, I'm 28, and just in the past year and a half, I've really come to open my eyes to what God has called me to do. I mean, it took a lot. It took me falling literally on my face, literally to a point where I ended up with drugs and alcohol, to the point where I almost lost my family. I found myself in a rehab, Able Recovery actually, and don't remember really why I was there. And my family was gone. I spent New Year's in a cell, basically. And I didn't know past that. I didn't know, honestly, at some points, I didn't know whether I was going to just end my life or whether I was going to change my life. And it was at that point, after I got out of all that, and my family, being the family they are, amazing family of God, they showed me that grace, and they took me back, because I had run so many times from them. And when I got out of that situation, and God then I met Larry and Leslie and all. And then I started to open my eyes that life was not for me. That life was what I can't carry myself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've always tried to do. I pushed people away. I tried to keep people out of my life. So, hey, I can do this on my own.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you right now, you can't. You may think you can, but you can't. And it doesn't end well. And that's where TCM came in. And that's where, like I said, non-perfect people helped me. And I'm here now, a year and a half later, and I've never been happier. And I'm living testimony that you can come from anything and be happy and be a servant for God. And there's no talent you cannot use. Anything can be used for God. Even if you think it's nothing big, anything you can do can be used for God. And that's what amazes me, is God will take anything and anybody. So
yeah, Michael's like, I'm on Facebook all the time. We're like, dude, use Facebook to help us.
Exactly.
He's like, sure.
It's my technology. So.
But one of the things that the enemy convinces us of, and I kind of said this earlier today, and it's true, silence are the prison bars to sin. Mm-hmm. If we'll stay silent and we'll keep our secrets and we won't speak, then we will continue to stay imprisoned. Mm-hmm. But when you speak out and you call in the name of Jesus and you call on for his help, those prison bars are broken. And you really don't even realize that until you do it.
Mm-hmm. And it is exactly like, because it's, I guess the best word to say is epiphany almost, because you're like, you don't even realize how imprisoned you are,
right,
usually as a human being. And sad part is those that love you, when they try to call to you and tell you, hey, and many of you may be able to relate, when people try to call out to you, they're doing it out of love, but in your head at that time, you're like, stop pressuring me, go away. So then you push them away, you bottle it up. And the more you bottle and the more you bottle, there's no worldly thing that's going to stop that pain. There's no drugs, there's no alcohol, there's no cutting, none of that's going to stop it. Mm. It's all, if anything, it's temporary and makes the situation worse.
Absolutely.
And the only way to stop that pain and to stop that constant sleepless nights and all that is to just fall flat on your face and say, God, fix me, heal me, take this off me. And when he does, you be amazed, feels like you lost 1,000 pounds. It's just, and it's just an amazing feeling, because like I said, you don't even really know until you finally just say, hey, God, and then the doors that he opens and the feelings that come over you are stuff you just never understand, and you just want to share it. And then that's where you get where you are, where I am now, where I just want to run out and tell everybody. So, like, hey, God can help you. So.
And that's what freedom will do. Mm-hmm. Freedom will make you want to stand up and say, I have been freed. Jesus Christ has made a difference in my life, and he can make a difference in your life too. And Michael is a living testament of that. And I love, I've shared this on this TCM before, and it's a verse that's found in Revelation that said, we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. That is how we overcome the enemy. And that is how Jesus gets the upper hand in our life and changes us and transforms us. Because, first of all, he shed his blood for us. We can't undo that. Yes. All we have to do is accept that. Yes. And second of all, when we speak out about what God has done for us, the good news that he has brought personally into our lives, then the enemy cannot ravage that part of our hearts anymore. And that's why it's so important to share your testimony, to share what God is doing. And I'm so grateful for Michael. And, we had no idea. Larry and I just took up residence in a coffee shop because we needed a place to write where it was public, so nobody would make up rumors about us.
And God works in mysterious ways.
Mysterious ways. And Michael's been with us from the beginning, and we've prayed together, we've cried together, we've loved on each other,
and all kind of stuff.
We have been through all kind of stuff. And the thing is, we walked through it with Michael. Maybe even if we didn't know we were walking through it with him, later we found out we were.
Yeah. And I guess that that would be my final, I guess my kind of final point is one thing that I didn't understand as a Christian for a long time either, and that's something I struggled with being a preacher's kid. Yes, I knew it all, and that's the hard part, is to know it all but not live it. You can know it all. Knowledge is great, but if you're not living it, it's really useless. And the one thing that got me, and some of you may be able to relate, or you will notice, when you throw it up, when you give it all to God and all that, it doesn't mean that it stops. Because that is one thing to remember, that Satan doesn't want you to be that vessel for God. So a common misconception is that you're going to do this and all of it's going to stop. All the pressures are going to stop. No, they're not. But something to remember is God has your back 100%, and it's not an easy walk, but it's worth it. Yeah. And he's gonna fight for you, and as long as you're fighting with, he's always gonna fight for you, but you just keep fighting, and the rewards are so worth it. It's words can't even describe. So
yeah. So thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your testimony.
Not a problem.
I think you've done a great job, and I really hope that he's spoken to people out there. And there's really two messages that we're sending with this show tonight. The first is, do not be quick to judge. Do not let others' actions control how you treat them, but let the grace and mercy of God shine through, even in their darkest moments. And second of all, if you are in your darkest moment, if you find yourself struggling with addiction or sin or pornography, whatever it may be that you may be struggling with, all you have to do is call out to Jesus. And the promise is that he will help you and he will answer you. And as long as you reach out for him, he will always reach out for you. Thank you, Michael, for coming on tonight. If you guys are chatting, keep chatting. We love you guys so much, and we hope to bring you more testimonies and more stories of good news of how God can change a life that the devil means to destroy. We love you, and thank you for joining TCM tonight. Keep chatting, and we'll see you next week.
Remember,
Bye.
You are not alone.
Exactly. You're not alone. Bye.